The dollar is the debt, and the debt is the dollar. The two are synonymous with each other. If the debt stops growing at an exponential rate, the dollar dies. The dollar will be dead tomorrow.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin weekly specials for December 3rd through December 10th, 2024, while supplies last. Right now we have 1 ounce silver backdated South African Krugerrand at just $3.19 over spot per ounce. We also feature the limited edition 2024 1 ounce gold UK Lion and Eagle coin at just $99 over spot per ounce. And finally, 1 10th ounce gold Britannia are just $29.99 over melt per coin. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We're delighted to have a first-time guest today. Philip Lowe, also known as Phil Lowe, is the founder of the Bitter Draught, a channel on Rumble, also available on YouTube. We found out about him through our mutual friend, Rafi Farber, whom you all know and love well. Phil, thank you for joining us this first time, Thursday, December 5th, 2024.
Thanks. I've been a big fan of your channel for years.
We're excited to have you on because you've been not just getting involved and educating yourself and learning about the markets and what needs to be known and shared about it, but you've been doing a lot to produce content to get the word out for ordinary people. And we want to share some of your insights. I found out about you through Rafi Farber. As I mentioned, in one of his recent articles, he posted that you helped him to put a piece in the puzzle that connected why gold is absolutely essential to connect us to the roots of where debt comes from and where our money actually derives from, and how to separate the wheat from the chaff. In other words, real money from artificial substitutes that would distract us away. But being able to really clearly discern that is something that you've worked hard to do to make things brilliantly clear to your audience. Can you tell us for a minute how you got into this realm of sound money? And we'll have some more questions for you about that are of direct import to our audience.
Sure. So to start, I got a degree at George Mason University in economics. And for those who are not familiar, George Mason is a very Austrian school, libertarian, free market, let the market determine everything sort of education. So many other institutions offer, a much more Keynesian approach where the smartest guys in the room get together and come up with the brilliant, the best interest rates and the best government regulations. George Mason says, we should have no interest rate or, let the market determine interest rates and absolutely minimize the regulations. So I went through I got the full standard George Mason education, and I'm actually I'm a classmate of Peter St. Onge, if you know who he is. He's a YouTuber who's making the rounds these days. I don't remember him personally, but we're about the same age, and I know we had the same professors and the same classes, so I think we brushed paths once or twice. But after graduating, I said all this liberty stuff is wonderful, but that's not the world I live in. We live in a world with ever increasing government and ever increasing taxation, and everyone's getting more and more. The government's getting more and more involved in our lives. So I said, I just said, well, I'll put this in my pocket and I'll try and live my best liberty life, but I'm going to have to live in the world in which we actually live in. And this continued since 2008 to the unknown, mysterious virus of unknown origin that happened in 2020. And what scared me, I was terrified not by the virus itself, because that turned out to not be that big, and not by, I was scared by the crackdown, by the unbelievable tyranny that resulted from the mysterious virus of unknown origin. But what scared me more than absolutely anything was the money print. I don't know if you remember, but M2 went just vertical on that day, during that period. And everyone was sitting at home getting the government check, and it was, free money. This is what, I don't have to do anything. This is wonderful. I was palpitating. I went to my wife and I was like, all my nightmares from reading Hayek in 2004, the boom and bust cycle, the money in the streets, nobody working, nobody bending over to pick up the worthless notes. I went to my wife and I said, this is a disaster. I don't know what I need to do yet, but we need to do something. So I immediately started researching, and it really, I work in programming. So I spend a lot of time, sitting at my computer doing this. And as a result, I can put things in my ears while I program. And I was listening to economic stuff, including your channel, 8 hours a day, probably 6 days a week. I mean, I'd come in, log into work, and I'd be listening to if anyone wanted to talk about economics in any way, shape, or form, I wanted to listen to them. And over time, when you listen to that many people, you realize some people are generally more in the right direction than other people. So I filtered it off. And I wrote Rafi Farber out of the blue. I said, I think you're right. And I spent some time trying to disprove him right. I even dived, actually, if I may, I started reading Rothbard. This is the foundational work, but he also has some lighter works like What Has Government Done to Our Money and Economic Depressions. But Man, Economy, and State is his foundational work, and he goes into great detail and crystal clear logical detail about why gold is the foundational money. So I went to Rafi and I said, you're right, but you have a problem, Rafi. And he freely admits this himself. Rafi is great for people who have a graduate degree in economics, but he has trouble hitting the lower note, which is, Joe Sixpack. How is Joe Sixpack going to know that Rafi is right and someone like Eurodollar University is less right? Because everyone's throwing up graphs, and there's a million, and I'm not a person to say we shouldn't let everyone speak. Everyone should absolutely speak. But when you let everyone speak, Dunnigan, you get a lot of noise. And so I said, how is a person supposed to understand? And, not everyone can listen to 8 hours a day of economics like I can. So how is a person supposed to see someone like Rafi and say, that's the right direction, whereas somebody pumping Bitcoin is the wrong direction, don't go that way. So I said, I will make my channel and I will dedicate it to economic theory. It's just theory. I don't go into charts and silver's going to do this next week and, dump Bitcoin now or pump Bitcoin now, whatever. I don't do any of that. I teach what's essentially in this book in a way that Joe Sixpack can understand it in a 15-minute video while the pasta's boiling, So that's my mission statement. That is what I'm trying to do. I can't, it takes, I've gotten it down to about 20 minutes, actually. I can go into why gold is money in about a 20-minute lecture. But I really need about an hour and a half of people's time. If you watch the first 10 episodes of my channel, you will understand why gold is money and why the dollar is a Ponzi scheme.
Thank you, Phil. I wanted to underscore one of the things that you said about the cold sweat that you broke into when you heard about the COVID so-called relief checks that were being sent out to people, helicopter money from the government. Aha. And the quote is from Margaret Thatcher, who had a lot of great quotes. She said, "Let us never forget this fundamental truth. The state has no source of money other than the money people earn themselves. If the state wishes to spend more, it can do so only by borrowing your savings or by taxing you more. There is no such thing as public money. There is only taxpayers' money." So I can understand why, and a lot of us break out in a cold sweat when we hear about sending billions here and trillions there. And a lot of them we don't even hear about. That's one of the problems. That's why we're here. A lot of other independent media here is to blow the whistle when we're not being told things that we need to be told. You founded the Bitter Draught, and people will find that on Rumble and on YouTube, and that's getting out this news and this clear, simple explanation of things that people need to understand. Can you talk to us about why you believe the return to a gold standard is not only inevitable but perhaps imminent?
Sure. So the academic understanding is really Ludwig von Mises. It's his monetary regression theorem. If you think about, let's go back to 1971, right? When Nixon closed the gold window, the day before Nixon closed the gold window, the dollar was a note for 35 ounces of gold. Sorry, $35 for 1 ounce of gold. So 1/35 of an ounce of gold, right? A cup of coffee in 1971 cost like 5 cents. A small cup of coffee at a diner, you go in, it's 5 cents, right? What is that in gold terms? That's 1/700th of an ounce of gold. The next day, Nixon closed the gold window, And a coffee was still, let's say, maybe it started to inflate, but it was probably still roughly 5 cents. I don't think it went up the next day. What on earth was it? What did that 5 cents represent? If the dollar no longer represents 1/35th of an ounce of gold, then what is a coffee being traded for at that time? And if you go back and you watch Nixon's video, what did he say? He didn't say, we are getting rid of gold. Gold's out of here. We're getting rid of it. We're going to try our luck with green paper, backed by absolutely nothing. And we're going to use just the productivity of the economy, or whatever the Keynesians always say, that there's all this other stuff that backs gold, that backs the dollar. No, he said, we're temporarily closing the gold window. So if you think of the dollar as a coupon for gold, and they temporarily close the gold coupon, that's like, the way I use it to explain to people, if you have a coupon for a free Big Mac and you go to McDonald's and you exchange it, right? That coupon is not the Big Mac. The coupon is just a note for a Big Mac. You can take it to a McDonald's and get a Big Mac for it, and you can trade your friend for it. You can say, here's my coupon for a free Big Mac. Can I have I don't know, a pack of cigarettes, whatever it is you don't want to trade it for. You could do all these things, but in essence, that the value of that coupon is entirely dependent upon its convertibility into a Big Mac. So if you drive to the McDonald's and you see the sign that says temporarily closed, that coupon is temporarily worthless until the McDonald's opens back up. Now, there is one wrinkle to add to this, and that is debt. So because we all owe, when Nixon closed the gold window, your mortgage, I was not born in 1971. You might be old enough. If you had a mortgage in 1971 before he closed the gold window, the next day you had the exact same mortgage. So you still needed to go scrounge up those coupons to pay off the mortgage. It didn't matter that they're no longer backed by gold. So because you still demand those notes for gold, those notes that are unredeemable for the gold themselves still have value. But what is the thing about debt, Dunnigan? It is all eventually either paid off or defaulted on. Those are the only two options with debt. So eventually, if no more debt was going to be accrued, all the debt was going to be paid off, or you say, look, I can't come up with the dollars, take my house, and you walk away. The debt collapses, you have a crash. And then the notes, everyone's going to sit around, well, I don't have any debt, but what can I do with these notes? And then you have, either a hyperinflation or a deflationary event, depending on which way the Fed goes, right? So to keep this going, the Fed, and by the way, the guest I want to recommend anybody to watch this who wants to understand how I learned this was John Titus of Best Evidence. John Titus, who's been a guest on your show, is the best explainer of the bank Ponzi. To understand how the bank Ponzi work, watch his show. But I'm going to do the brief overview right now. To keep the debt going, to keep the dollar alive, the debt must grow at an exponential rate. It must just do this. The problem is, if you've ever seen an exponential growth curve, once it's the vertical, there is no such thing as an exponential growth curve that goes on forever. So if you think conceptually of a bacterium, right? So take a petri dish and make the most beautiful, perfect bacterium-friendly environment ever in that petri dish. It's dark, it's humid, there's lots of sugar, lots of water, and you put a single bacteria in there. Then you get 2, then you get 4, then you get 8. Pretty soon, the entire petri dish is filled to the brim with bacteria, and they've eaten all the sugar, and they're releasing their toxins, and all the bacteria die. And now what do you have? You have a sterile petri dish. So the exponential growth explodes and then goes back to nothing. The monetary system is the exact same way. Our debt is going to go vertical, and then we're 99.9% going to have a hyperinflation. It is technically possible that Jerome Powell's going to say, no, we're not going to print any more dollars, and then we'll have a deflation like 1929. But he's going to print all the textbooks written after 1929 say to print. The old PhDs say to print. There's just a few Austrians that are like shoved away in a corner that say don't print. But all the other textbooks say to print. Powell's going to print. I promise. We're going to have hyperinflation. So we're going to go vertical, and then it's going to be like Venezuela, where you just the notes are $100 bills laying on the street. No one's going to bother to pick them up. And then we're going to move. Then when that goes away, we actually have to go back to gold because of the Misesian monetary regression principle, right? because the price structure is such that the coffee was 1/700th of an ounce of gold. And now what is coffee? Coffee is $3, right? What is gold right now, Dunnigan? $2,700. A small coffee is like 1/800th of an ounce of gold right now. The gold is the price matrix. Everything priced in gold on 1971, the prices just continued, they stay in gold terms. So as the price of gold goes up, the price of everything else goes up. To go away from gold, and okay, I'm going to get a little academic because technically silver predates gold. Silver is an older money than gold, and silver is a better money than gold. But except for silver and maybe copper even underneath that, to get away from gold, we would have to go to barter first. And if we end up going to barter for any length of time, because you have to if you leave gold, the entire price signal breaks down. Nobody will know what anything is worth. You know what a cell phone is worth because you know how many dollars you can buy with it, or how many dollars it will take to buy it. If you cannot determine how many dollars it takes to buy something because the dollars have hyperinflated, you will have to go back a step and you would use gold. If you don't go to gold, people have to go back to, you have a goat, I have a cell phone. I tell you what, slaughter your goat and give me 2 legs and the head, and I'll give you my cell phone. And then you say, no, I don't want, we have to go. If we have to go back to that, I'm worried that, millions of people are going to die because you cannot function. A modern society cannot function on that kind of, going back to barter.
Let me corroborate one thing you just said, and that is even recently in Venezuela, where they had the complete destruction of faith in their currency, the shops, we have photos of shops where the prices of things on the shelf suddenly get another little price tag next to them, which is the number of grams of gold and that's very stable. It's extremely stable. Also, we've interviewed James Rawls, the founder of survivalblog.com, on our show several times, and he has a antique firearms website where he prices everything either in Federal Reserve notes, FRNs, dollars, or in ounces of silver. And he says the ounces of silver prices are remarkably stable over time. He has to keep increasing the prices in Federal Reserve notes for these antique firearms, but he does not have to increase the price in ounces of silver. So anyway, just that corroboration that in the real world, what you just described is actually what happens. People are adaptable. That's why we're still alive here after all these millennia. And when push comes to shove, we do what we have to do to try to survive. And that's one of the things we do is go a little instinctive memory gets reawakened and people go back to what's stable.
And honestly, I mean, I've done empirical experiments. I've gone to farmers markets and I've tried to trade silver for food. And I know first farmer I went to, no problem. I thought I was going to have to fish around. First farmer, yep, I'll take silver, no problem. And I whipped it out at a Five Guys. I pulled out a silver dollar, and they wanted to take it. The problem with corporate restaurants is that the count has to match the till. So the manager doesn't want to have to go to the regional manager and say, oh yeah, this guy wanted to pay in silver. So you can't do that. But any independent shop almost certainly will take silver. The shiny metal, it just has an innate appeal. Now try yourself. Get some silver. I asked the audience, get some silver and try it out. You'll be surprised.
You also talk about on your channel how it is, because people are looking at political choices, saying, well, we elected Trump, we didn't elect Harris, we go this direction or that direction, and you're saying people understand that who's in that office, the political front is not what's determining this outcome. The outcome is determined by math and reality. So can you talk to us about how it is that politics and government reform cannot stop this return to gold?
Sure. The monetary system has been really running independent of who's in charge of it. I think it was Rothschild said, I don't care who's in charge. I don't care who's in charge of the companies or in charge of the country. If I can control the monetary system, it doesn't matter to me at all. And that's still the case. There is nothing. There are things that the new incoming administration is saying that I definitely like, but the thought that the Department of Government Efficiency is going to stop this is just not true. If the debt stops growing at an exponential rate, the dollar dies. The dollar will be dead tomorrow. The dollar is the debt, and the debt is the dollar. The two are synonymous with each other, and you can't have one without the other unless you go back to redeemable gold. So President Trump is just the poor guy who's going to have to tell us how broke we all are. That's going to be his, and I know he's fluffing all this stuff and he's pumping Bitcoin, which I wouldn't recommend he do because that's going to break a lot of hearts. But he is, now he does have, I will say this, Trump does have a test in front of him. He doesn't know what the test is yet, but the test is going to be when the dollar is dying and, people are taking to the streets. The great and good bankers and the top economists in the world are going to come before him and they're going to say, President Trump, we need to return to a gold standard. We messed up. We're sorry. We have to save the dollar or everyone's going to die. And the only way to do it, unfortunately, Fort Knox is empty, sir. And it actually probably is empty. I can't. That's a story for another day, but Fort Knox is probably empty or near empty. So we need to confiscate the gold, and that will be Trump's test. If Trump blinks and they confiscate the Delaware repository or go after the gold in the COMEX because they need to, refill Fort Knox to restart this, then America's experiment is probably, unfortunately, over in terms of, the liberty and doing self-government, because we're going to be restarting that. We're going to be taking all the purchasing power and giving it back to the same people who stole our stuff in 1913. If he doesn't resist, if he resists, he said, no. We're going to get rid of the Federal Reserve. We're going to return to, people trading gold and silver directly. And that's a tall order. But if he does that, then we will see prosperity in America not seen since the 1890s. It will be just an unhinged market explosion of prosperity and productivity. So, and that's a coin flip. Look, it's a real coin flip with the guy. Sometimes he says and does really freedom-oriented things, and he's got Vivek and he's got Elon. These guys are talking the talk, but when you're when you're staring at the abyss of a dollar collapse and a global hyperinflation, and people are saying this is how we can save the dollar, is he going to have the spine to resist that?
Yeah, it's been very problematic seeing the response that Trump has made to different advisors at different times, and sometimes plowing ahead with policies that were unconstitutional, very destructive of people's freedoms and privacy, et cetera. So we certainly know that in the past administration, he did have quite a few like Bullion Bank and Goldman Sachs and other type advisors around him. So it was difficult to know whose voices will be heard when push comes to shove. You talked also about how this transition to gold is not something that should be feared, but certainly it would be a time of convulsion, a time of great change. Can you talk to us about your vision of what that could look like?
Sure, absolutely. So I want to stress I've done a ton of research on this. The crash of 1929, the Great Depression was not caused by the crash of 1929. The Great Depression was caused by the socialist response to the crash of 1929. When they seized all the gold, Roosevelt took everyone's gold and hid it in Fort Knox, and that caused the markets to seize up so they could not clear anymore. Now, 1929 was a crash, and it was a painful crash, and my own ancestors lost everything in that crash. But the markets were clearing. Markets will always try to clear. So if you get out of the way, the people who thought they were rich but are found out are not rich, they have to sell their town cars and their, luxury mansions. The people that are suddenly rich because they stacked get to buy them. And then you start new businesses and the world continues on as it was. We've had crashes all throughout history. This one's going to be really big, really, really big. But it does not have to be anything more than a really big financial panic. It does not have to be, the Dust Bowl it's not preordained that the Dust Bowl will happen again. So, I know one of your other guests, Bill Holter, is a bit doom and gloom on that. He purposely moved out to the middle of nowhere to protect himself from the fallout of this crash. I'm far more optimistic, provided we don't screw up the market clear. If the market is allowed to clear, we will very quickly have prosperity not seen since the 1890s.
That's difficult for many people to understand how you can have a market when the currency in which the market is denominated is actually what's blowing up. Can you describe that?
Sure. It's what's going to happen is that the dollars are not going to be worth there. It's not there. The only thing the dollars would be good for is paying off debt. So if you imagine a stick of chewing gum costs $400,000, right? But your mortgage is also $400,000. So what do? You go out to the street, you get a little broom and you sweep up all the bills, $400,000. You take it to the bank, say, here's what I owe you. So all debts will be forgiven in a hyperinflationary event. You will get your house, for essentially nothing. The problem is if you don't have money, you're going to have to sell assets to get money to buy food. So that is where the stacking comes in, particularly silver. If you can avoid that, then you can get your house with hyperinflated. You can pay off your mortgage with hyperinflated currency and use the silver, little silver rounds to go to the store to buy food. Now, is the store going to be in a state of chaos? Absolutely. However, the farmers are still growing food. The food is still there in the field. They need to get that, and it's not doing them any good in the field. They need to get it to the store. So what's going to happen? Someone's going to offer to drive it to the store for maybe some food or a cut of the profits, whatever. They get it. They take it to the store, and is the Giant still open? Maybe not, but the building will still be there. The owner of the building will rent it out to, stalls, and it might look, our future might look more like an Arab market where the grocery store is, 50 different stalls of people hawking their food. That could happen. I'm not saying it won't or it will, but the food will get there because the market, people want to eat and they're willing to pay for it. So the market will clear, and I don't know exactly how it's going to clear, but the market forces will always, force a clear. Let me put it that way. And when the currency is rejected, people will go to whatever they have available. Now, in the beginning, especially in the very beginning, you might be trading silver cutlery. You'll have, I got my grandparents left me some silver in the form of knives and forks. I need some food. I'm going to go bring some silver over and trade it. Over time, it's going to be standardized, whether by the government or by the market itself. It'll end up probably in round discs again with stamps of approval on it, just like we used to have before. And then we'll go back into a time of prosperity.
The concept of the biggest debtor wins, or that all debts are forgiven because the currency in which they're denominated has hyperinflated, is attractive to those who are carrying debts currently and think, gee, I'll be able to get out from underneath this. That's certainly what the government seems to be trying to do, and governments all over the world have been trying to do for the last several decades. But there are historical precedents that this bonanza, this whatever windfall, doesn't actually benefit the small person as much as that the rules get changed, things get recalculated, a new system gets announced, and usually there's egregious penalties for not complying with it, as we saw during the COVID lockdowns and all that sort of thing, where if you want to transact, if you want to be an active member and not a member of just the black market, but the above ground sanctioned market in that new era, you have to be in the new system. A lot of people are concerned about that some people refer, biblically to the mark of the beast, or when they talk about central bank digital currencies or other systems where you can't operate outside the system. You can't pull your wealth outside the system. You only have the option because it's been declared by the authorities that you have to be inside the system. And usually there's a lot of political pressure brought to bear and social pressure and smear campaigns against those who are hoarding and even FDR, you mentioned back in 1933 and beyond, blamed the people who were hoarding gold and keeping it outside the economy, and that's what was causing the hardship and everything. So people were turned against each other, that sort of thing. So why is it not a valid concern that people would have that they won't be able to just get out from underneath debt in a hyperinflationary scenario, but they'll just be this new system that actually locks down our freedoms, our privacy, and everything else even more, rather than just this force of nature taking over that you've described?
Sure. So that's a two-part question. Let me answer it in both parts. First, that's actually the reason I formed my channel. So there's going to be two people in this new world. There's going to be the people who stacked, and there's going to be people who didn't stack. And the people that stack will have all the wealth, and the people who didn't stack will have none of it and have to sell their assets to get some of the wealth. So I started my channel to maximize the number of people who are stacking, because even just a little bit of silver will carry you a very long way through this crisis and onto the other side. So if only a few people have it, the have-nots are going to come out with the torches and the pitchforks. And the government can certainly say, I don't know if they're going to say it, but they could certainly say it was the kulaks, right? It was those guys over there, the hoarders, the people who hoarded the gold and buried it in the backyard. They caused this crash. Go burn down their houses and take their stuff. We could go into a Maoist revolution like that. I don't think we will. First off, I'm seeing shoots of liberty absolutely everywhere, and even in some of the darkest places. I mean, a burning intensity to return to the liberty of our forefathers. And at least in America, we're all heavily armed. So, it's not a simple matter of just, kicking in the door and burning down your neighbor's house because your neighbor's going to shoot you for doing that. Now, to answer the other question, so I guess the other question is, how do you prevent the government from the CBDCs and all that sort of thing? So an unbacked CBDC will absolutely not happen. You cannot replace the people are worried that you're going to replace, the dollars can become worthless, and then they're going to introduce this new CBDC. You cannot replace a worthless token with another worthless token and expect people to, oh, thank you, yes, we'll definitely take that. What are you going to price it in, right? If a stick of chewing gum costs $400,000 of old dollars and this new CBDC dollar comes in, what are you going to price a stick of chewing gum at, right? What's the market going to price it? How will the market know how to price it? The only way the market will know how to price the gum is how much gold you could originally buy for the dollars that are now the CBDC. So the other possibility, and I've been running this through my head, is a gold-backed CBDC. So let's say they go to Trump and they say, the whole spiel that I said before, we need to confiscate the gold, and we're going to make this new digital currency, and we're going to back it with that, but we're going to keep the gold locked in Fort Knox. So the question is, if I have a coupon for a Big Mac, and the Big Mac is right there, but the man will not, I show up and I say, here's my coupon, I want the Big Mac. And the man says, no. That is a representation of the Big Mac, but the Big Mac is in our freezer right here. So we're never giving that up. But you can use that. You can trade it and say that it is a symbol of the Big Mac. Who could I trade that with? Who would take my coupon that's unredeemable? So if the CBDC is unredeemable, I think it's going to follow the same path as the dollar and just completely collapse probably right away. The reason Roosevelt's scheme worked was this debt pyramid scheme that we've been building has actually been going back all the way to 1913, but it really picked up in 1933. So the debt, because even in 1933, when they seized all the gold, you still had a mortgage that you had to pay, and you needed dollars to pay that mortgage. So they were able to use the debt instead of the gold to boost up the dollar and give it value this entire time. And they said, oh, don't worry, the gold is in here. You can't have it, but it is in here, and this is an accurate symbol for the gold. Until 1971, when they said, you know what? It's not really an accurate symbol for the gold, but you can still use it to pay off your debts. Yeah. So the question is, will an unredeemable gold-backed CBDC work? The answer is, I think not, because this is going to be a debt cataclysm. If this is a hyperinflation, I think it's going to be, this is going to be a complete debt cataclysm. We're going to be starting over from zero, basically. So I think, and history shows, they've tried all this stuff before. They tried unbacked currencies in ancient China, and they failed. They hyperinflated. They've tried unbacked currencies in medieval France, revolutionary France, and it failed. So unbacked currencies never work. This one's going to be an unbacked currency. It's not going to work. So, it's not something that worries me. What worries me is making sure that we can get a critical mass of stackers. Because I don't know what the number is, Dunnigan, but there is going to be some mass where if we can get enough people to stack, when the crash happens, every single person who stacked is a node of civilization. So the silver bursts out of their house, and they buy whatever they want, and the people who had to sell things can now buy food, and the market gets reestablished. But if that number is too small, we might have a lot of trouble. The market might have trouble clearing if there isn't enough monetary medium to get in there.
Now, one of the remedies that has been proposed in this era is that of cryptocurrencies, for example, Bitcoin. One of the problems that plagues fiat currencies, such as the current Federal Reserve note, is that it's unlimited supply, potentially. They can print digitally or physically as many as, and we've seen that happen. That's been the hockey stick increase that you described in response to the COVID thing. And everything you said about the Great Depression's pain that people suffered was not caused by the actual market collapse. It was caused by the socialist response to that is carried out in the book from our good friend Wayne Jett, the author of Great Depressions Then and Now, the Fruits of Graft. He talked about that it was the actions by FDR that lengthened, worsened the consequences. And all of those things are echoed in what people saw through the most recent 4 years of this global crisis that we all went through, where it turns out that the data keeps proving over and over and over again that it was not the actual stated problem that caused the massive destruction to our economies, our lives, loss of life, etc., but it was the horrific response and the whether it was intentional or not, the absolute malpractice of the response, both from a government, medical, etc., to the stated problem that caused the most pain in people's lives. So anyway, just that we have recent example to corroborate that principle is that it's often not the natural phenomenon that's causing us our biggest pain, but the government's so-called, we're from the government and we're here to help. But anyway, crypto is supposedly going to solve that because it has a finite supply, such as Bitcoin, 21 million coins, that's it, whatever. And the BRICS nations have also started marching to a different drummer and saying, we're not going to participate in this fiat Ponzi scheme that y'all have been foisting on us. We're going to go march and hold on to real things, commodities, etc. Your view is that both of those alternatives are not going to be the answer, as opposed to just returning to the fundamental gold standard. Your reason for believing that?
Okay, so rather than you quote Mises or do some highfalutin economics analysis of why this is, let me explain this in Joe Sixpack terms, because I think this is the best way that anyone can understand this. So I want everyone to imagine here, because we're all predicting the dollar collapse on this show, basically. Imagine the dollar is dead, and civilization is frozen up, and we're all emerging from our bunkers in the wastelands of civilization, and we need to get the economy restarted. Now I have stacked some silver, and I come out, and some silver and gold, and I come out and I set up my little stand in the market, and I say, I have some gold, who wants to trade? I have some gold and silver, who wants to trade? And a beautiful young woman comes up to me and says, well, even though it's the apocalypse, I still want to look my best. So I will trade you this can of tuna fish for a little bit of your gold. And I shave off a little bit of the gold, and she takes it and puts it in her ears and makes some earrings. And she looks very attractive. And then her slightly less attractive and slightly more insecure friend is with her and said, well, I want some of those too. So, she gives me, whatever, a tire, I don't know, a toothbrush, and I shave off a little bit of gold for her. And she does the same. And now the boys see the girls are over at the jewelry stand. They say, wow, the girls like gold. Well, if we give them gold, they'll like us. So the boys all come up and, they want to trade, things for me. And I trade a little bit. And now the older women see all this commotion. They see the boys, chasing after the girls with, gold necklaces in their hands, say, please love me. And the older women elbow their husbands and they say, how come you never chase me and with jewelry anymore? And the older husbands, roll their eyes and they get in line to show their wives they love them, and I shave off a little. Before you know it, I've got all kinds of assets and the gold is dispersed out. Now, you're going to say, Phil, that's just jewelry. That's not money. No, I was using it as money. I was trading gold for the things I wanted. I used it as a money. Now, at the same time, this is, obviously, maybe the real world doesn't happen like that, but I just told you, Dunnigan, I told you a human story. You saw you could imagine every single instance of that in your mind. You said, okay, that makes sense. These are people behaving as people do at every step of that exchange. I want you to imagine, same time, Peter St. Onge. Peter St. Onge steps out of his bunker and he's got USB sticks with cryptocurrency on them. All the cryptocurrency you can imagine. He sets up his stand. He's got Ethereum. He's got Bitcoin. And the internet's still up. I'm not saying the internet's down. I'm not saying the power does not depend on anything like that. He has to make the dollar is dead. There is no possible connection between the dollar and Bitcoin. This is Bitcoin's chance to shine as money itself and replace it all. What is he going to say to somebody who has a can of tuna fish that he wants to buy? So someone comes up, I have a can of tuna fish. What do you want to trade for it? What do you say to convince someone to take your Bitcoin at that time? You can't say it's money. It's not money yet. This is its chance to become money. But you also cannot say it's worth X many dollars because the dollars are dead. So the Bitcoin is undefined until you define it. What do you say, Dunnigan?
What would I say if I were the person trying to get people to transact with me in Bitcoin?
Yes.
I guess what I would say if I were in that role would be to talk about how it can be used so fluidly for instantaneous transactions, near or far. You don't have to be. It's not like that clumsy stuff that the guys got over there. You have to be hand to hand to be able to transact with people. But here you can use this thing that can be done instantaneously. It's just some of the same sales pitches that we hear now from people who are advocating for its ubiquity.
But it's not a thing, right? There's nothing there. You're saying I will give you 10 points. If you said I will give you 10 Dunnigan points if you give me that can of tuna fish, they would say, well, what's a Dunnigan point by? I don't know. It's money. Who else takes it? Well, they're gonna take it. When? Soon. As soon as everyone starts taking it. Well, you know what to say? Well, you know what? I'm going to wait until it becomes money, and then when other things are priced in this, I will come and trade with you, right? That's it, and it will forever be stuck this way because, and this is the fundamental understanding, money is a commodity. Money is not a point system. When you get through this book, you will understand commodity money. Something that is not a commodity can never be a money. And you will run into that logical problem. You will run into that problem anytime you try and use it. And there's a misconception. People think, okay, well, people have used bird feathers and beaver teeth as money. So therefore, because we've used bird feathers and beaver teeth as money in the past, then therefore anything at all can ever become a money. That's not true. First off, even though you and I value pigeon feathers and beaver teeth at next to nothing, back in those times, those were highly valued, shamanic totems. They used them for whatever ritual purposes. They valued them. Even if we don't now, that doesn't mean they didn't value them. The second thing, they would never use, pebbles have never been a money. Pine cones have never been a money, right? It's always been something that's been, scarce and valuable to the people that held them. Secondly, all those other things, bird feathers, beaver teeth, whatever, all that is Stone Age civilization. Every civilization, as soon as they discovered metallurgy, metals became money. Copper, iron, gold, silver, right? And it usually goes copper, silver, gold. The one big exception is China because they didn't have a lot of silver and gold, so I think they went copper, iron, as memory serves me. But as soon as we got right, and even before, I just watched a video on prehistoric copper mining. So this is 1,000 years before the first coin was ever minted. There's no writing. It's the very, very dawn of civilization. There is this giant copper mine in Central Asia. And you know what they're doing, Dunnigan? They are making bracelets. And they make thousands and thousands of these little copper bracelets, right? And they're all uniform. But you know what? It's ancient tech. So uniformity is it's an art, not a science. They don't have scientific industrial ability to make uniform sizes. So what happens, Dunnigan, when the smelter makes a copper bracelet that's too small? He fuses a little copper nugget on the end of it. Now, why would you do that, Dunnigan? That's not beautiful. In fact, a beautiful jewelry is often, a thin necklace often looks better than a big gaudy necklace, right? So why were they doing that? Because it was money. Because it had to be uniform weight. It had to be a uniform weight because they wanted money in copper. So there's some very strong evidence that copper is these copper bracelets predate our earliest known coinage by 1,000 years.
Your mission to get the word out to ordinary people echoes the reason we founded our channel as Reluctant Preppers back in 2013 was to try to help as many individuals, as many people and families as possible to get on the right side of preparedness so that they could weather, whether it's natural disasters or man-made disasters or financial implosions or whatever, to be able to carry on and to live our lives freely and financially with abundance in the future. This drives your mission as well. What will people find when they come onto your channel, especially on Rumble, where you do your primary posting at the Bitter Draught, what will they find there?
So the people, if you come to my channel, you will find, if you want to learn more about specifically why gold is money, you can come to my channel and I will explain it. I explain it in, a myriad different ways. And I do it in a way that anyone can understand. And I do not I'm very specific. I have a very niche channel. I don't say, here's the silver chart. Silver's going to $50 next week and gold's going to go to $4,000. I'll stake my mother's life on it. I don't do any of that stuff. I just teach Austrian school economics, and it's the equivalent of a George Mason's university education. But it's also, it's 15-minute videos that anyone can understand.
When we did our homeschooling with our 5 kids, all of whom did amazingly well, we had a writing teacher who said, when you're teaching writing to boys, make sure that you keep it short, humorous, violent, short, and humorous. That'll keep the boys attracted. So anyway, the fact that you keep it digestible and accessible and relatable for people is I think, going to help you well and help those who want to find your channel. How should they get in there? We'll put a link to it in the description of this video, folks. But tell people how to find your channel exactly.
Sure. So it's the Bitter Draught, the TheBitter Draught. It's the Bitter Draught channel on Rumble, and I'm also on X. And you can email me at thebitterdraught@gmail.com. Those are the 3 ways to reach me. I do not respond to the comment section of YouTube. I do post videos there, but I get these email alerts that people are commenting on YouTube. I mean, you can talk amongst yourselves there, but I do not participate on YouTube because Rumble is a much better free speech platform, and I'm trying to promote that.
We've been speaking with Phil Lowe. He is the founder of the Bitter Draught, Draught, on Rumble. And folks, if you don't want to miss a single episode with Phil or any of our guests here on Liberty and Finance, make sure you're on our free mailing list by just going to our website, libertyandfinance.com, put in your email address, click submit, make sure you confirm. On the confirming email, you'll get 1 email in your inbox per day with our latest interviews and any weekly specials so that you too can do what Phil is talking about, and that's be among the stackers who actually have something that's real when the chips come falling down, and not among those who have nothing that is real, that were only trapped inside the system and who have to start giving away things that would have been sustaining, but that you otherwise have to trade off for currency, etc. Phil, thank you for joining us here for this first time on Liberty and Finance.
My pleasure, Johnny, and looking forward to next time.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin weekly specials for December 3rd through December 10th, 2024, while supplies last. Right now we have 1 ounce silver backdated South African Krugerrand at just $3.19 over spot per ounce. We also feature the limited edition 2024 1 ounce gold UK Lion and Eagle coin at just $99 over spot per ounce. And finally, 1/10 ounce gold Britannia are just $29.99 over melt per coin. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.